right, here we are with another quick pitch video. I am lucky to be here with Ian Major, and his company is called Joltz, and they are doing a lot of very technical, very cool stuff with Taproot Assets. So I will turn it over to him to present Joltz.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Pumped to have the chance to share a little bit more about what we're doing. And I think from an overarching mission standpoint, we're really trying to help accelerate Bitcoin's path to reaching its full potential of this true peer-to-peer money system. We all know the meme of store of value to medium of exchange to unit of account. And while that's directionally right in terms of the sequencing, I think in reality, it's a lot messier and a lot more of that happens in parallel. And so one of the big learnings that we've had as a company is the importance of meeting people where they are. And I think that is embodied really well at some of the increasingly unambiguous data that's coming out around stablecoin usage. Annualized transaction volumes, so annualized payment volumes, are currently around 17 trillion for stablecoins. That is fully on par with Visa. This is old data from 2023 on the left, but if you look at 2024 data, that is fully on par with Visa, well ahead of MasterCard, well ahead of PayPal. This is a technology that's been around for a handful of years. And granted, a chunk of that is things like crypto exchanges settling value between themselves with the use of stablecoins. But even if you strip that away, you're still left with hundreds of billions of dollars every single month of organic payment activity. And you may ask, like, what are people doing? Like, what are they using this for? They're using it for a number of things. They're using it to send value across borders, so classic kind of remittance case. They're using it to conduct payroll for, if you've ever been a founder running a business and you have a global workforce, you know how much of a pain it is to do that. You have people that are buying real goods and services with stablecoins. You also have people who are getting access to US dollar denominated value where domestic currencies might be melting even faster than the USD. So there's all these sorts of use cases. And I think the writing is increasingly on the wall for people willing to pay attention. Stripe recently announced their acquisition of Bridge. This is basically like a stablecoin as a service type of company for over $1 billion. By the way, that's like only 2 and some change years out from their seed round. So this space is moving incredibly fast, and meeting people where they are is increasingly important in this quest of getting people onto the Bitcoin network. And the big problem that I think companies like Bridge have identified, just as we have, is that most businesses and therefore end users can't really benefit from this technology yet, right? This is very complex tech. It's relatively inaccessible still. And so that is where Joltz comes in. We build infrastructure and tooling that takes all this complexity on the left and distills that into beautiful, easy to use interfaces and simple code that any business can use to bring support for things like stablecoins and Bitcoin for that matter into their applications. And our secret sauce, like what makes us unique, is that we're doing all this on Bitcoin, right? Why would you build anywhere else if you didn't have to? And the reason is this simply wasn't possible before this year. So we're using something called the Taproot Assets protocol. For those not familiar, this is a protocol developed by Lightning Labs, who's behind LND, by far the biggest implementation of the Lightning Network. And this was announced back in 2022. So this has been a multi-year process, lots of development, low time preference development that's gone into building this protocol. And so you now have this wonderful, really perfect payment tech stack. You have Bitcoin as the base layer, this ultimate decentralized, most secure settlement layer. You then have the Lightning Network, right? Nearly infinitely scalable payments layer. Solana, Tron, all of these other blockchains talk about their transaction throughput and this and that. But you're already starting to see Tron, who, by the way, is the #1 blockchain when it comes to stablecoin usage, in large part because of its historical cheapness. You're now starting to see that change. And the fact is blockchains can't scale. So like you need a layer like the Lightning Network. And it's taken some time for Lightning to achieve its real kind of maturity. But you now have ready for prime time Lightning. And then the final crown jewel on top is Taproot Assets, by enabling us to bring that utility of giving people the unit of account that they need, right? Whether that's dollars, euros, etc. So you now have all of this in one place on Bitcoin. That's a huge deal. And you may ask, okay, well, who is this for? What are the business segments that we're talking with, working with? And there's a few fold, right? Wallets and payment apps. both in the kind of Bitcoin space and more traditional. None of these companies want to go and build all the scaffolding and infrastructure that we've built to do this. They would much rather go with a more plug and play solution like what Joltz has developed. We're also talking with a number of asset issuers. I'll get to some exciting news, major milestone in just a moment, of some of the asset issuers that we're talking to who want to issue their stablecoin on Bitcoin. We have a strong legacy with our company and rewards as well. We have a client who wants to reward their customers with a Taproot asset that can be converted into Bitcoin, for example. So rewards is a big one. And then we've all seen like the 402 Lightning Network for AI agents kind of story. I think AI agents are going to be pretty similar to us in that I love spending Bitcoin, but you better believe that when I go to conferences or wherever, I set myself a budget. I'm like, I'm going to spend up to this, number of sats. And so even some of us early adopters are still hesitant to spend our sats. Why would AI agents be any different? So this tech stack also addresses some of those pain points as well. Business model here is relatively straightforward. Our software is completely free for developers to use and for businesses to integrate Joltz into their applications. We want to lower that barrier as much as possible so that we get the distribution. And then the way we make money is on the back end when end users do different things. That could be swapping one asset for another. Imagine Tether on Lightning and swapping that for sats or vice versa. Or it could be sending a payment, and the list goes on. And I'm very excited to share, this was just 2 weeks ago, I was down in Sao Paulo, Brazil with one of our partners, Yulin, and we co-announced the world's first natively issued stablecoin on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. This is DPIX, a Brazilian reals-backed stablecoin. It's pretty cool what this is being used for in Brazil. Obviously, Brazil is a massive market. You can see an example of a user playing around with some of the Joltz functionality there on the right. But the value prop here for businesses like Yulin is a pretty classic build versus buy, right? Yulin could have gone it themselves and spent the 2,500 plus hours or $500,000 plus on a complex tech build, or they could go with Joltz and get a safe, fast, simple way of adding these capabilities for their business. And we think an increasing number of businesses are going to make that same decision, especially as stablecoin payments volume grows, especially as the Bitcoin ecosystem grows. And I think that's evidenced by our traction to date. So we're partnered with a number of great businesses as part of our initial alpha launch. And we've got an increasing, rapidly growing pipeline of leading companies as well, who collectively represent well over 3 million active users. We can use that to get a sense of revenue growth in the near term. We expect to close 2024 with about 55,000 in revenue. Keep in mind, 2024 was really about building the core tech, getting this thing off the ground, proving it out. And so for 2025, we're forecasting on the more kind of pessimistic conservative side around 400K in revenue, and on the more optimistic side, $1 million plus. There's a number of other growth catalysts that could drive this well higher, but that gives us a good sense of where 2025 is looking and the growth rate versus this year as well. Looking over a longer time frame, we think it's absolutely possible that Joltz could generate $100 million in revenue over the next 5 years. If you just break this down and look at the sheer size and growth rate of some of these different stablecoin use cases and how we're positioning ourselves centrally to be that provider for the Bitcoin ecosystem, I think the potential here is massive. We've also assembled the founding team to actually make this happen. I have over 8 years experience with enterprise software as a service. The company I worked for, APT, was acquired by MasterCard. That was MasterCard's biggest acquisition at that time. And so through that acquisition, I naturally got a lot of insight into the traditional world of payments. So a lot of payments expertise working with clients like Walmart, TD Bank, Emirates Airlines, and others. Steven has over 9 years experience working in some of the world's most sophisticated data centers and infrastructure environments, including for Bank of America and some of the largest financial institutions in the US. So this knowledge is critical as we build a product that can actually scale. And then Lyndon Stark is our CTO, one of the most talented Bitcoin and Lightning Network developers on earth, frequently praised by Lightning Labs themselves for his pioneering work with Taproot Assets. We're also backed by leading early stage investors. So Outlier Ventures is the number one Web3 investor globally by deal count. UTXO Management is the venture arm underneath BTC Inc., who of course puts on the Bitcoin conference as well as publishes Bitcoin Magazine. And so in our current seed round, we're looking to raise $1.5 million on a safe. That's a 10 million pre-money valuation cap with a 20% discount. We are willing to go up to 2.5, and we estimate a 20 to 50x return. Obviously, there's not a ton of comps that we can use at these early days, but when you look at what happened with, for example, Stripe acquiring Bridge, that gives us a really good indication of what we think that path looks like for investors. And guess what? We actually are already in discussions with Bridge. As it turns out, our technology as this sort of stablecoin as a service for the Bitcoin ecosystem is very complementary to theirs because they don't have that yet because it's so difficult to build out. There you go. This was a blast. Hope that was helpful and hope to speak with you guys soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian.